G'day guys, what's cracking? It's Ralph here, and we are in the midst of a cyclone here on the Gold Coast, and so in a day it's going to kick into full full steam as a Category 2 buffers the coast. So it's a bit fun to be in the studio rather than outside shooting, but I've already done some shooting with this very attractive, that's one too many verys, isn't it? Attractive lens. This is the 50mm f.95 from Brightin Star that they've sent me, and goes all the way up to f16, and it looks really good. So it's a good looking lens. You put it on, it's a good looking lens. This is glow in the dark paint. So when all the lights are out, you can actually read what setting you have your aperture on or your focus on to help you make those decisions when it's all dark, because this is made for low light. So when it's really dark, this lens shines. Oh, they should have used that in the marketing. It's got this lens hood that just pops up like this. You turn it to the side. It's a shallow lens hood, but it nonetheless, it's built in, so you're never going to lose it. And because it's metal, they make the most of that metal by a little bit of a rub and a lock. Has a manual focus. It's not auto, it's manual focus. So you can focus all the way with this ring here, and there's a little bit of an extension, but not much at all. Then you've got your aperture wheel on top. The reason that's there is because you can't change your aperture on your Z camera. So it'll go F dash dash, and all the aperture change comes from here, although your shutter speed and your ISO work in accordance with this, so you don't need to freak out. It's got a 13 bladed aperture, which gives it really nice, round, wholesome bokeh. As I took it to the Level Up arcade, which is owned by great friends of mine, Guy and Beck, and they let me have a shoot around there with my kids, and we had a good play. So if you're ever in Broadbeach on the Gold Coast, that's where you have to hit up. Let's go back to the lens. It's 62mm thread, so if you want to put a filter on it, it's 62mm across here. It weighs 443 grams. Now that is heavy for a 50mm, especially on an APS-C sensor, which is what this is an APS-C lens. So it's heavy, but it gives good body and good weight, so you get stabilization with that. The reason it's heavy is it's because all made out of metal, and all of Brightin Star's lenses so far that I've tried are all made out of metal. They're really well made, they're very robust, and you don't run the risk of dropping it and smashing it open or breaking it open, but you can still upset the lenses in there. So just go easy, take care of it, right? This fits on the Canon M mount, the Canon RF, the Nikon Z, the Fuji X, and a Micro Four Thirds. So plenty of options, and it even comes in silver. So if you wanted to spice up your camera bag display, you can go for the silver one and not the black one. Has a minimum focusing distance of 0.5 meter, which I feel is like the limitation of this, because when you put it on f.95, which is amazing for an f-stop at this price. This is $199 at the moment, about to jump up to $250. So if you're looking to get it and you're really keen, I'd suggest getting it sooner rather than later. There's a link in the description. But the minimum focusing distance is 0.5 meter, and it just feels like if they could make this lens better, they would reduce that. Now that probably means tinkering with the lenses in here, or putting more glass in here, which may add to the weight, it may add to the expense, maybe a decision that they decided to make. But at 0.95, if you can get really close, it just looks really sick. At 0.5 meter, yeah, you kind of lose the full impact of what a f.95 could be. However, it lets in tons of light, and so we're now going to look at some images that this lens produces on the Z50. It works on the Z50, the Z30, the ZFC, and you'll notice I'm going from Z to Z because that's just how I'm rolling today, because there's a cyclone outside. I'm going to show you some of the images, and you can see for yourself if it's the lens for you. This is the Level Up arcade and photos I took with my family the other evening, and here's the information of the lens. But as you'll see, there's no recording of the millimeterage of the lens, which is 50mm, an APS-C, and the f-stop. So I will have to recall. A lot of them were taken on the very high f-stop of f.95. So let's have a look. This is Zari. Now you're manually focusing, and manually focusing in low light is quite difficult, but that comes up really, really well. It holds an ISO of 640 when I'm shooting way over 400 in a very dark scenario. So the 0.95 is really doing well. You have a little bit of blur, obviously, when it takes away from her eye, and it goes without saying, these are all raw photographs. None have been edited unless I've done it right in front of you. Now this is just a good example of when she moves out of the plane of focus. So she was in it here, she moves back here, and she goes blurry. And so if I go down, I think we'll find somewhere here, like her hand is in focus. So you need to be careful when you're shooting manually and your subject is moving around. Now this is a classic example. You can see just his ear here, it's in focus, and that's what I wanted. All of this is blurry, and you can see this is the field of focus at f.95. And this is Lyndall, my wife, getting into the air hockey. She needs a little bit more training, but she's on the way. But have a look at this. See, it's nice, it's clear, it's sharp, keeps the ISO to 1400, and we don't see effects of it being noisy. So I'm really impressed by the quality of this lens. I shot on 1/400 because she was moving around. I pulled it down to about a 2.8, and that kind of gave us a more of a larger field of view, but also enabled it to hold the action shot and still let in enough light. All right, this is the hammer, my boy, and look at that. Let me just look at that. So that's a 0.95, and that's his eye, and from here to here is the field of focus, and then it blurs just to here. I really like that shot. I could just frame that shot and then work on a little bit in here and get these to pop, and that would just look great. But you see, I use focus peaking. I used it on super sensitive and red. So when I look through the camera, there is all these crinkly bits here that are red. So the bits that are highlights turn red, and then when you change the focus and move the camera, then say it goes to his ear, then his ear becomes red around here, and then when you move it this way, all this background becomes red. It's sort of a red overlay. It's called focus peaking, and that's what it does. Perfect when you're using a manual lens. So the f-stop on this is about a 6, I reckon, to get all of him in focus, but he's also very noisy because it's bumped up the ISO to here, shooting over 1/400 because he's celebrating, but I'm basically locked in here with the focus, which just allows all of the bike to be in focus. And Zara, you see, she's blurry in the background, which is kind of what we like. And if we just have a look at what sort of shape, so it's a bit noisy, but I like the shape of the bokeh in the background there. Here's a good example of how hard it is to track the eye. So you're always focusing on the eye when you're shooting a person, and the eye that's closest to you. So that's blurry, but there we get it. And I really like that shot. I can soften those colors and make it look really nice. The ISO's jumped right up to 3600, and I could have shot this 1/200. There's no need for me to shoot it on 1/400. Then I'm just experimenting with some of the neon and the lights, and I love the colors that this lens produces on the Nikon Z APS-C camera. They're just realistic. It feels like that's exactly what I was looking at, this Nerf game. And you've got this beautiful depth of field that this is clear, and then these just sort of drawn into the game as you're looking at this photo. Now I'm shooting about 2 meters away on a 50mm to get him all in. This is on 0.95 aperture. Then I go to a 4, and you see this starts to come into focus a lot more, and he's still not in focus. What's going on there? And then we go to an f7, and then we go to an f16, and you can see, look, he's in focus, bumps up the ISO, obviously. It really fades, but Zari, who's maybe 5 meters behind him, she's still quite blurry. So go from that blurry of her to that. So we go from super blurry, that's Zari there, and her blurriness starts to sharpen. But even at f16, which is the narrowest aperture of this lens, she's still not sharp in that. Then we had a lot of artistic shots. This is just the neon. I shot these for the lights and the textures. There we go. He is not quite in focus, so the focus is a bit far back. And that's the problem with focus peaking, that sometimes this can be in focus on your focus peaking, but it's actually not in focus in relation to the lens. It's one of the challenges whenever you use focus peaking. And a little bit of chromatic aberration, just a little bit around the edge. That's on 0.95. Keeps the ISO to 800. It's very dark, but I shot this on 1/640. This is the Level Up arcade that we went to. This is a long shot, aperture of 4, but quite easily all of that is in focus, and it's looking really good. It is a bit noisy, 4,500, but it's I think you'd actually lose that as you put a little bit of edit on. I wouldn't worry too much about that. This is through a reflection on the back of a game, and so it's a reflection that captured that, and I can focus in on that through the reflection. That's actually really good quality, given that if I used autofocus on a Z lens, I get exactly the same result because of the nature of the reflection and the lack of light. Lyndall having another go too, and she's nailed it there. She's nailed that focus. It's really good. 10,000. It's on an aperture of about 3, so all of this is in focus, and I'm blurry. Yeah, it looks good. Again, this is really shallow, and this is in focus up here. Let's just have a look. So yeah, it's really narrow. You've got basically here is in focus because it's on a 0.95, but because of the lights, even shooting 1/640 40. We still have an ISO of 450. So that's really good. Means it can absorb a lot of light and actually excel in dark spaces when you're taking photographs of people. It just picks up these neons really well. I was really happy and impressed with how it went under difficult lighting scenarios where other lenses might really struggle. Not too noisy, like that's pretty good quality. You just got to nail your manual focus, and that's what I didn't quite do there. This, on the other hand, nailed it. That's in focus. That's not. Then just took a couple of shots in the middle of the day, so lots and lots of light just to look at the textures. I moved this to an f5, and I'm half a meter away. This is an acai bowl, and that looks really good, right? I really like it because there's no concept of like light back here. Like you can't see what that is at all. Even the spoon's blurry, but you see the texture of those strawberries. Then I just went a top down, and look, it just does well, doesn't it? So you just adjust your aperture according to the depth of focal plane that you want to capture, and it does a really good job because it captures those textures really, really well. And then this is my boy, and look, his eyes a little bit blurry, but his mouth, he'd be so happy with his shot. His mouth is in focus, and this is zoomed into 100%. But you look at the textures on that skin. He's beautiful skin anyway. I was really impressed. It's a great little lens, and it's quite specific. APS-C at 0.95. You know if it would complement your kit and the work you want to do, but great for food photography, great for portraits, great for low light, but it is manual, so you have to get used to it. But I love shooting manual and being forced to shoot manual because you appreciate photography a little bit more, because you're going to have to work for it. It renews some of that artfulness about it. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! We just rocketed through that, didn't we? It might have taken a bit of time, but I felt like I spoke at a bazillion miles an hour. My apologies if you're like commenting right now. You're like, you Aussies, you just speak so fast. Yeah, sorry. I could speak slower. Video would be much longer. Thanks, Brightin Star, for sending it. Let me know what you think of the lens down below. If you would like to subscribe or like this video, give it the thumbs up, ring the bell, tell other people about the channel, share this video. All of that would be super helpful. You can even give it a thanks and or buy me a coffee downstairs. Whatever you like. Thanks heaps for watching, guys. Appreciate you, and I'll see you after the cyclone.